Oxford from the inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth.
Hey guys, welcome to Oxford from the Inside, the good, the bad, but always the truth. Today we're joined with Maddie and Sophia. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah,
Maddie.
Hi,
Sophia.
I'm Sophia. I'm Sophia. I'm from New York and I did the Masters in Environmental Change and Management in 2018, 2019.
Hi, I'm Maddie. I'm from London. I also did environmental change and management 2018, 2019, and I was in Somerville.
Oh, we're in Somerville. Oh, nice. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What college are you at, Sophia?
Brasenose,
Brasenose.
greatest college.
Greatest college. Oh, damn. Yeah, no, Brasenose nice. Oh, Somerville's nice as well, but it's up for debate, I guess. But
Yeah, it was nice. I feel like, well, we'll probably get into it, but yeah, I didn't live in college, so I think it was a bit different.
no, yeah, for sure. But so today we're going to be talking about life studying a master's in environmental change and management. A really interesting topic, I find. Something I'm sure lots of people will be looking into studying as a master's degree. Um, so starting off, what's the difference in general studying in Oxford as a master's student as opposed to an undergrad? Sophia, if you want to start off.
Yeah, I think as a master's student, I just felt like I could appreciate what Oxford has to benefit with a new lens instead of being overwhelmed, instead of being like, okay, this is my world now. I could kind of contrast my different life experiences and come there and just have a great time.
Nice. And what
Yeah,
about
I
you?
think I think it also kind of I didn't do my undergrad at Oxford. I was at Exeter, also in the UK, and I think it kind of gives you the room to really kind of focus on what you want to focus on rather than feeling like you're doing still at undergrad, even though after school it's kind of like you can pick and choose what you're doing. Masters, you really can like explore the avenues that you really want to focus on without having to do the other stuff. And so for me that was really important, and I would say was the biggest difference. And then also just at Oxford compared to where I was for undergrad, the city and everything is so different, and like just the whole feel of the uni and kind of the the feel of it and the people, etc., is so different.
And so would you both say that you both felt very motivated to do your master's degree, and how is that compared with your undergrad?
Yeah, I think so, because also it's you've picked the subject specifically, but also I'd say UK undergrad is pretty relaxed, and so like in my last year I think I had like 3 contact hours a week, and sometimes I didn't even really commit to that, which isn't great. And so Oxford definitely, like, I was way more motivated to like self learn and again do the things that I was most interested in and focus on them, and to like actually go to the lectures, instead of just being like, oh, it's raining, I'm not gonna go.
Yeah, I think especially in the environmental field, it's hard to kind of progress without a higher level degree, like a postgraduate degree, especially if you want to specialize in certain fields or something like this. So you kind of go into the masters, especially in the ECM masters, with this idea that you are gaining some sort of specialization, and you need to kind of commit yourself to learn this and learn the different aspects of the masters.
So everyone's very much doing it because they want to, and then I guess that in itself is a very nice environment because everyone's very committed.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
a super inspiring environment to be in, and I think also on a personal level I was like super proud to be on that course, and did not want to waste it. And so I think again, yeah, that was just personal motivation of it, feeling really lucky to be exposed to the teaching and the people that we were exposed to in that year.
Yeah, exactly.
so
We
I
have such a
didn't-
wide.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about environmental change and management, the course. Like, is it the course to do if you want to combat climate change?
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
And in what way? Like, in what way is it? What do you study in the course, and like, how is it related to climate change? And do you do other things outside of climate change? I imagine. If you want to tackle that question, Sophia.
Yeah, so basically environmental change and management. I mean, the title is really, really broad. You don't really know exactly what it means. But if you kind of break it down, environmental change can mean a wide variety of things, including climate change, but not limited to climate change. It could also mean ecosystem change, land use change, systems change, energy changes. So you have all of these different components of the environment and kind of what is known as the Anthropocene, where there's a lot of human activity that's putting a lot of influence and exertion and kind of damage to the planet. So you kind of, throughout the masters, look at the various ways in which, I guess there's different, environmental changes happening, climate change being one, being a major one, with impacts in the rest, but not the only one.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it's really integrated, and it's a lot about systems thinking and like unpacking these complex issues that aren't just, it might start with climate change, but then the ways in which that this is affecting a particular area or society, etc. And it's the only, I think, important to know maybe that it's the masters that's run with the Environmental Change Institute, which is based out of Oxford, which has a lot of different, it's got like 5 different working groups, and there is incredible research happening there. And and so it's kind of the masters that's attached to that, as well as being attached to the geography department at Oxford.
Wow, it does sound pretty fulfilling and like altruistic as a degree, for sure. I was wondering, so you both were saying about how you both felt that doing the master's degree, you felt like you could specialize in what you found interesting. So how does that work with ECM? Like, do different people do different things, or do you all learn all this, like everything the same? Because like for like a chemistry undergrad, which is obviously entirely different, but we all learn almost everything identical until the last year where we do a few option papers that are different. So yeah, in your ECM, in your master's degree, how does it differ person to person?
Right. So there's core modules for the first 2 terms that everyone does, and it's a lot of, they're like still quite broad, and so the readings, etc., you can focus on a particular area of it that is of interest. And then each term you also have a huge variety of different electives that you can select, and then these are taught in much smaller groups, because the course is all lecture based with no tutorials apart from these smaller electives, and you do 1 each terms. And then you can also, if there's one that's like particularly of interest to you but you didn't get it because you put, I think, down like your top 3 choices, I think, and if you don't get the one that you want, you can still go in and sit in, but you don't have to do the end of term essay, for example. So which is great. And so some people did that, some people didn't. It really was totally personal preference. And then a huge one is your dissertation at the end is kind of where everyone's kind of personality and also their interest really came into play. But it was interesting because a lot of people took away a lot of different things, even though we were still doing core modules. So yeah, even though you're all taught together, you can really kind of make those modules your own.
And if maybe it's helpful if I kind of list through the core modules, and then like just so we get a sense. So like we are all in classes, lectures around the Earth system, the biosphere, so ecosystems, human systems, and economics. So we're doing like lots of physics, as well as kind of understanding societies, as well as understanding different forests and ecosystems. And then we also learn energy systems, we learn governance systems, and then we have more kind of concrete technical skills modules. And then from there, we also have electives that we can specialize in. But like Maddie says, at the end of the day, it comes down to your dissertation, where you really, really decide what you want to spend months on.
Hearing you list it like that, we did learn a lot. Like hearing it all listed out, it's like, yeah, wow, actually it's quite a lot,
especially for 1 year. It sounds like you could be doing it for a lifetime. Wanted to ask, like, specifically, because what do you mean by like human system and earth system without specifically, and what does that mean? Like, if you want to go for it, Sophia.
Yeah, so Earth systems is kind of more like understanding the cycles of nutrients or cycles of molecules that kind of underlie the processes on which we depend. So for instance, like water cycles, phosphorus cycles, etc. This also encapsulates climate change because we are disrupting these cycles to an extent. Versus human systems, it's more about kind of understanding or gaining the tools to better understand societies, like using different frameworks, using kind of, I don't know, Maddie, maybe you could talk about this.
Yeah, it was what I mentioned before with systems thinking. It was kind of learning these different tools and frameworks to assess complex adaptive issues around climate change or major like weather events, etc., kind of all that sort of things, land use planning, how to tackle issues around that sort of thing. And so that was more to like teach us tools for assessment for these issues that we were learning about in Earth systems. So they did kind of interlink.
So could you like also like, could you go into kind of like a choice of going into more about like going into detail of how the environment's changing, or could you like also go into learning more about actually implement like the struggles and hurdles you have to go through in implementing policy to make policies that improve the environment? Like, was that also included in ECM?
Yeah, so the first term was more about the environmental change, and then the second term was more about environmental management. And so that's where the policy things came in, the different like models used to tackle weather patterns and municipal infrastructure and all of that kind of thing. And so they broadly, but there is overlap, split it into sort of change the first term, management the second term, and then the third term is just exams and dissertation. There's no teaching.
Yeah. So one thing that I was wondering if you guys knew about, but or like had anything to say, or I know that there was the 2015 Paris meeting for in terms of the world and like trying to implement new policies to improve the environment conditions for the future. And why is it that it's so difficult to implement policy to improve the environment? It's quite a big question, but just for anyone who's listening to the podcast and might be thinking that this could be something that they're interested in terms of it, why are there so many hurdles for implementing policy to improve the environment when it seems like to so many people it seems so important? So if it's so important, why isn't it not just being done? If one of you wants to take the lead on
that's a really big that's a big and great question. I can think of like so many. It's really difficult, especially at the international level, just because you have so many kind of complex stakeholders and complex levels in which you're acting, and sometimes national versus international interests don't align. There are power dynamics across all of these levels, across all of these different stakeholders. Some countries want to value kind of their economy. Some countries want to value like environmental policy, but only within certain realms. Some countries are saying we are fighting for our lives and we will be underwater, but major powers aren't listening. So there's a lot of unequal power dynamics happening, and that often translates to ineffective or unequal policy, especially at the international level. I think when you look more at the local level, there's difference there, because I feel like the stakeholders there have more power over like their own area.
I'd say you nailed the answer. Yeah. The other thing I'd add is, with the complex power dynamics, you've got to remember, again, on like an international stage, each individual country is coming to this with their own needs and also their own level of development, and so nobody's coming at this from a level playing field in terms of their impact, in terms of their there are just so many different issues that each country is coming to the table with at so many different varying levels, and so to create sort of a blanket environmental policy that each country would have to adhere to is incredibly complex, because there are so many different ways of kind of addressing certain issues. And so I think,
and there are like historical effects as well. So like, who's responsible for climate change? Who should pay for it? How do we decide? There's
how does environmental policy impact development and the growth of certain countries, and should that be a reason for them not to develop, etc., etc. So yeah, it's super complicated. And I think we were one of the main things that I took away from ECM was to kind of question everything, and that everything is more complicated than it seems on the surface. It's kind of one of my main takeaways, but it's an incredibly important takeaway, and it taught us, I'd say, like, to really look at each individual problem as an individual problem, but also how these other issues that at first don't seem like they would be relevant at all are definitely relevant and is so interconnected. And so yeah, I think that totally feeds into that question.
That's interesting. I was wondering, like, a more personal question, when you were both learning about the management side of ECM, and then you hear, I know, was it the case that you heard, like, you would hear certain countries or certain policies being rejected, or rejected, that you both, did you ever feel like that this is kind of crazy that these things aren't happening, or like annoyed of certain decisions that have been made? And if so, how would you manage that yourselves? Like, how would you feel about that, and how would you, like, I know, deal with that annoyance?
I mean, coming from the US, it's especially frustrating because current Trump administration, for instance, has deleted like all mention of climate change from like the Environmental Protection Agency website, which is like completely absurd. So there's like an absolute denial of, you know, what I've been studying, what I'm passionate about, and like what the world is currently going through. So that denial is just like on another, it's not even about policy decisions that are better or worse. It's about like a complete paradigm that is based on the denial of facts and science, and I could go on. It's very frustrating. I don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, I think early on I learned that it would be incredibly easy on this course and being interested in this field to burn out really quickly, because so many things are frustrating, so many things don't make sense, and it sometimes just feels like no one is taking it seriously, even though there are really good things happening, that there are obviously counter issues that are pushing things back, and it feels like the momentum sometimes is like getting going and then it seems to slow. And so at the beginning, I think, of the course, I felt really despondent, and I think I was like, I don't know how to position myself within this issue and how I'm going to make effective change and what I can do. But then I think I learned that being interested and being engaged in it is one step, and it's so easy to burn out, because if you take everything that, like Sophia says, you know, if every time Trump cancelled something or like withdrew something, it would be so easy to just get so despondent and to burn out if you took everything personally, and actually that isn't helpful for you or for the people around you or the work that you're doing. So yeah, I think I learned that quite early on.
Yeah, I feel like if you are interested in a career in like environmental stuff, you have to be caring and empathetic to an extent, because you are kind of working towards a kind of a greater good, but that can also be harmful in that we take everything, like I take everything personally, and I feel like quite sad when things happen in ways that I don't want it to. But besides this like environmentalist kind of viewpoint, I think there's also in the course we learn that we can talk about environmental management, and we, even with the best of intentions, even with our hearts in the right place, we can also perpetuate and do harm. And so I feel like this course is about kind of directing your energy, directing your kind of will to do good things, making sure that you can think through it very carefully, make sure you're not perpetuating harm, make sure that you're understanding how complex the situation and the issue is within all of these other nested systems, and really thinking through it, and then hopefully finding solutions, or maybe not solutions, but just listening and fighting for a different world.
Wow, that was a lot. That was amazing. That's really inspiring as well. I imagine you two might take it, and I might find it normal, like the world that you live in. But me listening to it, I find both what you're talking about and doing like unbelievably inspiring. And I think I think it's definitely something to say that you've both, like, in my opinion, I'd heavily argue that you've both made a massive step in, I don't know, seeing that the world is going in a direction that we don't want it to, and then taking a master's degree to bring it back to the other direction is quite unbelievably admirable. So but I think also I also agree that no, if one was to like see the world and like take pain, like, feel bad when they every time, take it personally, if they felt bad when they saw like harm in the world, you would feel negative quite a lot, and I guess like is like easier said than done, but reaching an acceptance that the world isn't perfect or far from perfect, and that you as an individual can try your best to make it a bit more perfect, and then I guess you can like maybe find peace in that. And I guess, and coming back to what I was saying before, and you're both very much doing that, which is like unbelievable and like really cool. And this is definitely a master's degree that I would definitely look into. I thought I should say that. Also, I was wondering, what did you both do as your undergrad, and do you need to do anything specific? Do you need to do a specific undergrad to be able to do this as your masters, to do ECM? Starting with Sophia.
So I actually have 2 undergraduate degrees. One is in the social sciences and one is in sustainable development. So I think very, very much in line with kind of the facets of ECM, but you definitely don't need to have the same background as me. Definitely not.
And then I did anthropology and sociology. So good for the social stuff, but like I had no grounding in anything environmental. And we had 36 people on our course, 35, on our course, and everyone was from a completely different background. We had physics backgrounds, geography, anthropology, so sustainable development, maths, like chemistry. It's literally every degree you can think of, we probably had it. And so you definitely don't need a specific background at all.
So then how do you, when you apply, how do you stand out from everyone else if it's not the specific degree that you've learnt before, if that makes sense?
So you do a personal statement again, like you do for undergrad, and then you also submit an essay that you've written, but it's basically your personal statement that I think is the key. And I know that they, I can't even really remember what I wrote in mine, but but I think it's just more about why. So obviously environmental change is going to impact all of us. There's no one that's going to be immune to it or not impacted. And so I think it's about kind of what change have you seen, or what change do you feel passionate about, or how do you see your position in it, etc., rather than what you've learned previously from your degree. Or it's more about, I think, positioning yourself within it and your own personal experience with it. I think because I think they like to have a real diverse background. You know, we had people that had come straight out of uni, we had people that had worked for 5 years, we'd had people that had worked for 1 year. Like, it's a huge variety of people that will be on the course with you if people listening do it or have applied. And it's, yeah, so they like a big variety. It's also it's hugely international. So there were 3 people from England in it, which is, like, for a master's in the UK is quite rare. And then everyone else, like, we had, I think 20, I tried to count before, I think it's like 28 different nationalities, and of 35 people, I think. I tried to count. Sophia, do you think that's right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so it's incredible because you meet people who have come from such different backgrounds and experiences, and so no one is the same. No one has come from the same background.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just for a personal statement, just kind of showing that passion, showing that you've started to understand the issues and want to learn more, and you are moving in this direction. I think goes much more than I've learned these skills and want to hone them.
Is there an argument to be made that that to be able to, like, enjoy and do the degree and enjoy the degree, and to an extent to get in the first place, to be accepted to do the degree, that not only, like, I know if someone really wants to do something altruistic and, like, change the world in a certain way, that is not the only prerequisite at all to be able to, like, enjoy this degree, that they also have to actually see the content and make sure that they will enjoy the content of the course. Like, do you think that's a fair point?
As in, someone wouldn't need to do the course in order to understand, or to.
As in, that if say someone listening and they thought that there's a high, like, there's a, like, doing ECM is very valuable because of how it's aimed to change the world in terms of the environment. But even if someone thought that was really valuable, and they want to do something altruistic like that, but they should also make sure, like, should they make sure that they would also, like, they also enjoy the course and the content? Like, so quite obvious. Like, do you see what I like?
Yeah. Yes. But also I think, yeah, so okay, for example, like Sophia said, there's Earth systems, which is quite physics based, and then there was also environmental economics, and I hadn't done maths since, like, year 12, so GCSE year, so 16, and I'd never done economics, and I'd never done physics. I hadn't looked at a physics book since I was about 13, and so I knew what I was getting myself into, but I didn't have any background in that, and that did stress me out at the beginning, and I spent a lot of time working and learning on the basics. But if somebody, like, don't let that put you off, anyone listening, if they're worried, if they see, because you can access the handbook, and so if there's, you know, economics, you've never done it before, don't let that put you off, because it's actually a really small part of the course. But be ready and prepared to have to learn these things. You can't not do it, but you don't have to love it and know loads about economics. That's just an element that you're going to have to deal with, and then you can focus on what you really are interested in. But yeah, I'd say people do need to be, like, ready and aware of what they're going to learn and be prepared to learn it, rather than just, like, it being from an altruistic point of view, I'd say.
Yeah. And I guess best case scenario is, like, you leave the course with an appreciation of the science and the rigor, and also the different perspectives that go into what we're learning. And then if you can take that into your career, if you can take that into your research, then that's best case scenario.
talking about appreciation of the subject, I was wanting to ask, what did you both, if you could talk about it very briefly, do your dissertation on, starting with Sophia?
Yeah, so there's actually a wide range of different dissertations. So if I could just list them, some worked on sustainable finance, some worked on resilience and climate change, some worked on, what is that, Maddie? What did Fiona work on? Insurance, like insurance and climate change. And then you had, like I, for instance, worked much more on the governance side. I looked at land rights and peri-urbanization.
Mm-hmm. And I looked at kind of scientific communication and post-truth in UK media around plastic pollution. So mine was like nothing that we'd really done in the course. And two other people did one centered around communication as well. And then, yeah, and some people did it completely quantitatively, and some people did it totally qualitatively. So it's, you know, so it's like total opposite ends of the spectrum. And
Yes.
What do you mean by post-truth? Is that what you...
Oh yeah, so it's kind of this idea that we're now beyond fact, and it's basically like fake news, and so it's stemmed from a political sphere, and it's now moving into sort of the environmental sphere in terms of like how science, like climate change science, for example, is communicated in the media. And you know, again, like Sophia said, this kind of climate denial and that sort of rhetoric, and how that, is now we're kind of ignoring facts, we're beyond facts. So it's quite interesting to do, because it's kind of a new thing within the environmental sphere.
And
yeah,
go for it.
Oh, so I was just going to say, like in the dissertation, you can use, as Maddie said, qualitative or quantitative or a mixture. You can use remote sensing, you can use like satellite imagery, you can use like fully interviews, you can do surveys, you can really explore.
Like I created my own theoretical framework, so you don't even have to like we use a fully founded theory or framework. You can really kind of go through it if you want. We had a friend do their own modeling, create their own model. Like it's really exciting what people do.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool to make your own theoretical framework. It's like have you name it by like name it after yourself.
No, I haven't named it.